Are you ready to turn your potential into performance? If so, you're in the right place. This is the Coach Bru Show, and here's your host, John Brubaker.
Welcome to the Coach Bru podcast. We are joined today by a very special guest, TJ McDaniel, who, before I tell you his title and where he works, I'll tell you he's a self-described opportunity maker, and that is straight out of his LinkedIn profile, which I think is the greatest title ever. And as you get to know TJ, crystal clear. TJ is the Vice President and General Manager of Redneck Riviera Brands, which is the lifestyle brand of country music singer-songwriter John Rich of Big and Rich. And TJ's been partnered with John on this initiative since 2012. TJ, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, good morning, Coach. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, great to have you here. I know this has been in the works for a while now. I'd love to just dive right into learning a little bit more about you and just sort of how your personal and professional path leads you to this point in the road.
Right.
Take us back a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So, I have been, as you said, kind of a self-proclaimed opportunity maker for quite some time. And really those opportunities all stem from relationships, right? I mean, that's, if we look back over time and think about our, journey through our career or different careers or different touch points, all of those really kind of build upon successful relationships. So, about 6 years ago, I had a guy give me a call. It was a friend of mine that I'd known for many years, again, the relationship, and said, I'm working on something really special. I know you've got a great career in the medical field. You really don't need to leave and go do anything, but this is exciting and I want to talk to you about it. So wanted to sit down, visit with him, looked at what he was working on and thought, man, why not? So, let's take a little bit of a risk here, a little bit of a gamble. Always had that entrepreneurial spirit and went and joined him in that business. And over the course of, a couple of years, it was really kind of a rocket ride. I mean, big trajectory. We grew from, 6 or 7 people to about 200 employees and kind of started to dominate this country lifestyle space. It was during that time that I ended up in Nashville, Tennessee at an event with the Country Music Association, the CMAs. And they were holding a marketing summit at this guy's house named John Rich, which I'd been a Big and Rich fan forever. So I was eager to go sit and listen to what he had to say and other people that were on the panel. So we pull up, we see this amazing house, which is called Mount Richmore, sprawling place right there on the edge of Nashville, overlooking Vanderbilt Stadium, an incredible setting. And you walk in and there's this big panel. And they're talking about all kinds of different things. And John Rich stands up and says, hey, welcome to Mount Richmore. Since you're here and you're dirtying up my floors, I'd like to talk to you about something I'm just now kicking around and getting started. And it's a brand called Redneck Riviera. And I sat there for a second and thought, wait a minute, I grew up in the South. I know exactly what that means. That's the beach. It's Gulf Shores, it's Corpus Christi, it's Panama City. Like, how is this guy making this a business? And so he left some ball caps on the tables for us. And I'm sitting there just kind of looking at this hat, looking at this logo, thinking about all the different potential things that this could become. And I kind of got up and quietly dismissed myself from that room of panelists and went back and said, hey, can I speak to John for a minute? And the lady said, yeah, who are you? And I said, well, I'm TJ. I'm out here with this summit, but I can't get this Redneck Riviera phrase out of my mind. I want to talk to him and try to figure out what it is that he's working on. And, he came around about 10 minutes later and we shook hands and got to talking about this and that. And I said, can we get together and maybe look at making you guys a line of boots? I said, and he said, sure. So that led from one thing to another, and here we are today, sitting on an incredible lifestyle brand that is continuing to grow and expand into multiple categories. But really, back to your original question, John, it's just me thinking about how can I use one relationship into another and build upon them and help people get what they want. And it's been really a remarkable situation and a great career.
So if anyone's listening was wondering why he's referred to as an opportunity maker, that should leave no doubt in your mind hearing that story. And I've always said, just kind of go back to your description of this CMA Marketing Summit at John's house. I've always said that there are plenty of talented and good-looking musicians in Nashville, male and female. But what really separates you isn't talent or looks. That gets you in the door, maybe. What separates you is your work ethic and your ability to market and promote what you do. Because without that, nothing else matters. I've always looked at John as like perhaps the greatest marketer in country music. He just gets it on a whole other level that is very apparent the second you go to a show. Like there's no detail or stone left unturned. I remember a couple of years ago, he did a show here in Maine, and literally the second that he and Kenny got off the plane and drove into Portland, they asked their driver, "What is the most popular bar people hang out at here?" And he took him to a place called the Asylum. And they literally walked in the bar, bought the entire bar, a double round of Crown, had a drink with everybody. I hate to even mention another whiskey besides Redneck Riviera, but it is pertinent to the story, so forgive me. Bought the entire bar, a double round of that beverage. Just kind of, did an impromptu meet and greet, said hello, and, went on their merry way. And that, it's every touch point in their, in someone's experience with their brand is very deliberate and intentional. And I think that's something you don't necessarily see with a lot of artists. Success leaves clues. So I am so not surprised there was a marketing summit that took place at Mount Richmore. So you partnered with John back in 2012 on this Redneck Riviera brand. And it's directly as a result of your mission is to be what I call a ligament. If you think about a ligament in the human body, it connects. Without the ligament, nothing else works. It connects the muscles, the joints. And your desire to be a great connector and to create opportunities for other people and help other people ultimately ends up also helping you. And that's a credit to you as a human being, as a businessman. This kind of stuff isn't always without challenge. And I know early on, Redneck Riviera had some challenges in terms of protecting the brand name. And if you could just kind of share with us some of John's and your conversations and the attorney's conversations with, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. I think that'd really be enlightening for people.
Yeah, those stuffy guys in D.C. that wear fancy suits. So, those conversations actually happened shortly before I met John for the first time. So to walk you through the story of how this man brilliantly, and I mean brilliantly, got this done, let me give you a little history on that. So John was down in Gulf Shores, Alabama, many years ago, 9 years ago, and down there with his family, probably finishing a concert and hanging out at the wharf and having a beer in a koozie that says, "Welcome to the Redneck Riviera." And he's sitting there looking at that and like, okay. And he sees this kid walk by that says, "It's another beautiful day in the Redneck Riviera," wearing a t-shirt that has that on it. And of course, him being the epitome of entrepreneurialist says, I wonder who owns that. I mean, that guy or girl has got to be making a killing on this phrase. I mean, it's been a part of the Southern vernacular for nearly 60 years, and they've got to be printing money. So he calls his attorney in Atlanta and says, "Look, I'm curious as to who owns this." And they said, "Well, we don't know, but let us find out." A little bit goes by and they call him back and they go, "Well, John, you're not going to believe it. Nobody does." And he says, "Well, great. I want to file the trademark and get going on this. And so they started the paperwork on it, and immediately the trademark office sends a note back to the attorneys and say, you can't do it. And the attorney calls John and says, John, bad news. The trademark office says we can't do this. And he says, why? He said, well, they say you can't trademark a geographic location. Right? No, yeah. So John, he's always been this like full steam ahead, says, well, that's fair, but I want you to ask them where they think it is. And so John, or the attorneys, make the request, and the trademark office comes back with a description that they literally copied and pasted from Wikipedia that says the Redneck Riviera is also known as the Emerald Coast, from Gulf Shores, Alabama to Corpus Christi, and extends down the panhandle of Florida, blah, blah, blah. And it was verbatim. They copy and paste it. There was not an original thought in it.
That's the depth of research that our tax dollars go to fund their salaries.
That's right. That's right. Some powerful person went online, Googled it, copied, pasted, and pushed it back. There was an argument, which was great for John, because as soon as he got that, he would tell you if he was here today, he knew he had him at that point.
Yep.
Because you can't mail a letter to the Redneck Riviera. You don't pay any taxes to the Redneck Riviera. That he's got social posts from everybody from Lake Havasu up to Delaware saying it's another beautiful day in the Redneck Riviera. And his argument is this is a state of mind. It's just like Margaritaville, but for a different crowd. It's exactly where you say it is. It's not defined by some geographic location. So the trademark office I could see it now, right there up there, and they get this response back, and whoever this person was just probably dropped their head and said, okay, rubber stamp. And so they granted him the overall trademark for that. And then over the course of the next few years, John went through truly agonizing exercise of perfecting each one of these marks within these different categories. So
he's got like 18 different categories now.
Yeah, maybe even more than that, Coach. Wow. At this point, it's food is one, and boots is another, and apparel is another, and on and on and on and on and on. So the man is he's like a bulldog, and that is his bone, and you're not going to take it away from him. And he's hanging on. And because of that tenacity and that just not going to give up attitude is the reason why he's in the great position that he's in right now with this brand and his career.
TJ, I was going to say, I think John's really like the way I describe you as opportunity maker. I would describe John Rich as a force of nature.
No doubt.
And I think the lesson for everyone as you're listening to this fascinating story about how Redneck Riviera, the trademarked brand owned by John Rich, came to be, the lesson really as an entrepreneur is it's a lesson in not assuming outcomes. TJ, he could have just as easily said to himself as he's sitting there in Gulf Shores, someone must own that trademark. Look at those T-shirts and look at that koozie. Someone's got that idea trademarked. But he didn't. He dug a little deeper. Most people, let's face it, most people are low effort and they won't do the work. They won't dig deeper and ask the questions. So it's also a lesson on execution, acting on ideas. And I always say K minus A equals 0. Knowledge minus action equals nothing. And so as you're listening to this, if you have an idea, don't discount it as, somebody probably already did that. Do your due diligence like John did. Dig a little deeper and find out if you can, own that piece of real estate. And the real estate, I mean, is, the trademark. Trademarking, in this case, is state of mind, which is just brilliant. It is no different than Margaritaville, really. So
that's right.
You had mentioned a number of different categories. You've entered into these different layers of the lifestyle brand, very intentionally. I call it intentional congruence. Like these all align with one another for a reason. Can you share with us some of these different layers of the brand? And
of course I can. You bet. And so before I do that, I think it's important to tell you really who this brand is for. So again, we talked about how it aligns somewhat with Margaritaville, but this is it's a younger crowd. It's a little more, it's collar agnostic. Okay. But it may lean a little bit more towards your blue collar. So it's military, your first responders, your teachers, your plumbers, your firemen, your whatever that get up and put the key in the car and go to work every day. And they don't complain, and they come home. And when it's time for them to celebrate, this is that brand. So we have really adopted that work hard, play hard mentality. That's kind of our motto. Okay. So when we look at these different categories and we think about how they align with this demographic, you're right. I mean, we're trying to make them very intentional, things that people are already using. They may even be incredibly loyal to another product within this category, but we feel like we have got the right story, the correct narrative, and more importantly, and this is John being brilliant again, it's a premium product at a moderate price point. Okay, so if we think, all right, when we launched with footwear, that is and you have a pair of the boots now, Coach. So you've seen the quality, you've gotten the compliments, and you understand now how comfortable these are on your feet. That boot in another brand, and I won't mention them, but there are some other brands out there that would build a boot like that and charge $600 or $700. And that's not who we are. We're trying to put like I said, a premium product out there that the average folks of America, the hard workers, can still afford and feel like they've got something special on their feet or on their body or in their hand or an event. So, if we look at the boots and the way we design the shirts and the way we create the entertainment venues like, Redneck Riviera in Nashville on Broadway, or the whiskey that we put in somebody's hand, or the barbecue grill conversation. I mean, these are all things within this demographic and the profile that we work with that they would be great supporters of. So we're very intentional about how we roll these different categories out.
It's all just beautiful alignment. I want to go back to the boots. I will say, I own a pair of custom handmade ostrich, very high end. I won't mention the brand. Very high end boots that are, $800-900 pair of boots, and the Redneck Riviera boots that I have are every bit as comfortable. Mm-hmm. Just as stylish, if not more, because right across the saddle of it is this blue swath of leather with white stars, and at a fraction of the price. I think it's $189 for those boots. So I think that speaks to the American people have been gouged on price for a long time with a lot of things, and I think now more kind of the ethos of the culture right now. People want to be treated fairly, and they want to know they got a good deal. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're treating people fairly, giving them a premium brand at a reasonable price. And that, crosses over, onto all of I use that as an example because it really crosses over onto all your categories, and they all align. You wear boots, perhaps you might drink whiskey.
That's right.
You might enjoy ball caps and hats and the apparel, the line of whiskey, the boots, what is next, TJ? Without revealing any secrets, prior to launch. Yeah. What's kind of in the pipeline now next?
Yeah. So the other product I didn't mention a minute ago, but has been huge for us is the meat snack division. So we have our own line of beef jerky. It's an all-American beef or a true spicy pork jerky, which is incredible. And we got the numbers on that last week. And we're in all 50 states and about 4,000 retail doors with that. Tractor Supply is our newest partner that came on board. So, we will continue to add things within the snack category because that's important for people that work hard and play hard, right?
It's an on-the-go thing too. People are busy; they're on the go. It's something they can go to. Yeah,
absolutely. We are currently working with our distiller working on a couple of different versions, a new version. I'll just tell you, it's going to be a Granny's Reserve. So John's Granny Rich is just the most amazing person, and it's been such a big part of his life for so many years. And this is a nod to her, as it was on the first round of whiskey. Everything's got to be tested by Granny and make sure that it's approved. So we will have a Granny's Reserve whiskey that will be rolling out not too long, not too far away from now. A couple of other extensions within the beverage side. And then we're going to continue to grow out our entertainment venues, which is a big deal. You know, it's one thing to read about it, to taste it, to eat it, to feel. But when you get to come to one of these venues and really immerse yourself into what this brand means, and again, the build out on this is so intentional. You hit all the senses. Like people, if you're listening to this wherever and you really want to know what we think Redneck Riviera is, come to Nashville. Come spend some time in this venue and walk around and see the walls and see what's displayed and listen to the music and see the Heroes Bar, because we're huge supporters of the military. See these honor coins and challenge coins that are laid within the bar for all to see, and the American flag flying high over the deck of the third floor. Come immerse yourself in that and really get a feel for what this is all about. But Coach, outside of that, I mean, we've got several other things. I had conversations last week with a company that's interested in doing barbecue grills, which is perfect because when we're done working and we want to fire the grill up, we want something great that we can cook on and feel good about. It continues to grow and grow and grow. And then if I could add one more thing, and this may be, I mean, I don't know, it's what gives John and I so much joy about this. John is a huge giver. You mentioned early on that they both walk into the bar and they buy everybody in there a double round of Crown. I mean, that's always been he and Kenny. They want to give. And so John wanted to make sure that within this business, he tithes on all of it. And so whether it be whiskey or the jerky or what we're doing in the bar, a portion of all those proceeds goes to an amazing organization called the Folds of Honor. And you can look them up at foldsofhonor.org. But their mission is to provide college grants to those kids that have lost a mom and dad or combat or had one that was severely disabled. And, you know, we launched the whiskey in the first quarter and we're able, just from the sales through the first quarter, to provide 6 college scholarships or grants for these kids. It's
That's
remarkable.
awesome.
So
yeah,
it is, man. And that's the stuff that makes our heart so full at the end of the day is when you see the names of these 6 kids that you're being able to be a blessing to. I mean, that's, golly, you talk about run through a brick wall. That's the stuff that gets me so fired up. And I love all the aspects of this business and we're having a blast, but really that's that movement from success to significance. And that's the season of life that we're in. Like we want to do things that are significant and help others as well. So I just didn't want to go through this whole time with you and not mention Folds of Honor because they are just a remarkable partner.
And I think that, you know, as you're listening to this, again, another great lesson is 2 things. Number one, you look at the partnership with Folds of Honor, and you know, again, today it's incredibly important. You know, it's always been incredibly important to be a good corporate citizen, but today more than ever, consumers appreciate, have a respect, a loyalty, and admiration for companies that are great corporate citizens. You look at Tom's Shoes as an example. Mm-hmm. For every pair of shoes you buy, they send one to a person in a third world country that doesn't have shoes. And, you know, just the loyalty, the rabid fan base and following they've developed as a result of being good corporate citizens. I don't think anyone should underestimate, even if you're a solopreneur listening to this, the fact that you can have that same kind of impact. TJ, one of the things I wanted to also ask you about is, you know, and as you've gotten to know John, you know, what strikes me about him is, you know, I had mentioned, you know, he leaves no stone unturned, but also there's this sense of just this vision. I call it kind of seeing around corners. And John really seems like he can see around corners. He sees what others don't. Pursuing the trademark's an example of that. The other example is very interesting. You know, he's always been a Crown Royal fan, and Crown, for those of you who don't know, is a Canadian blended whiskey. Well, when he decided he wanted to take Redneck Riviera into the kind of like the spirit division of it and create a whiskey, he said, you know what? No, there's no American blended whiskey out there. Why don't why don't we create that?
Mm-hmm.
So again, you think about like people have used the term Redneck Riviera since the early 1960s. No one trademarked that. It was just sort of out there in the ether. There's always been Canadian blended whiskey, and you think about all the kind of iconic whiskeys in America, but there's never been an American blended whiskey until now. So I just think it's his vision. What's something you've learned from John and just kind of being around him? Because I think that kind of stuff's contagious as you look at the man's vision and where you guys have gone together with this brand.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Coach, and you've had these people that have come into your life, and you kind of bump along, and you always try to be a student. You're always trying to learn. But then there's some people that you meet that it's just like, oh my gosh, like I never dreamed I could learn some of the stuff I'm learning. And John's phrase that always resonates with me as he's making some of these big calculated moves, and we're talking through, he will finish by saying, "We're playing chess, not checkers."
Yep.
You understand that? We're playing chess. He says it all the time. And the first few times he said it, I kind of scratched my head, and I think, well, now I play a little checkers. I'm not very good at chess. But I learned that it's just a lot more calculated, that you can't just, jump and take a bunch of checkers. Like, it's really thinking about this move and how it impacts that move. And it could take quite some time before you either win or lose. But that has been it for me with John, is just how far down the road he sees and where he wants to go. And then stepping back and going, okay, if that's where I want to go, how exactly do I need to position myself today in order to get there? Now, the other thing that, and I read this last week, Winston Churchill, amazing person, his definition of success was the ability to move from failure to failure, but maintain enthusiasm, right?
Absolutely.
And so even with all of these moves, and you look at the brand now and where it sits, and man, things are going great. But behind the scenes, I mean, there's been a lot of things that we've not done perfect. I mean, it's business, right? Like, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but how do you maintain that enthusiasm, and how do you stay true to what you believe this brand stands for and should be for the general public, and just keep plowing ahead? So, again, John has been one of the most remarkable human beings that I've ever encountered in my life, not only from a personal standpoint, but also from a business acumen standpoint. And he has been an absolute joy to work with.
Absolutely. And the whole concept of playing chess, not checkers, thinking 3 or 4 moves in advance on the board, so to speak, that's, for everyone, it's really kind of beginning the relationship, the connection with a prospect or customer. It's beginning, kind of entering into that with, let's say, the 9th or 10th sale in mind, and not like, what can we get out of this relationship today, but begin with like that 10th sale in mind. This is it's a marathon, not a sprint. I think too many people are just focused on what's in front of them today, as opposed to seeing that big picture. So I would encourage you to begin with that 10th sale in mind, folks. So TJ, one of the things we didn't touch on that I wanted to kind of go back to is, you look at millennials today, and I know that's a big part of your audience with Redneck Riviera, and they are by and large a generation of renters. And what I mean by that is they don't buy CDs or videotapes or DVDs. They rent space in the cloud. A lot of them don't own cars. They Uber, or they do ride sharing and that kind of thing. But what they love to own, an overwhelming majority of millennials, I think something like 83% of them, value experiences over things. And Redneck Riviera, beyond being a state of mind and a lifestyle brand with a suite of products, is also in the experience business. Can you talk to us a little bit about that Redneck Riviera experience that someone can have at the establishment in Nashville? Because I think that really kind of ties it all together.
Yeah, of course. So, if you've never been to Nashville, you should go. It's probably one of the top 5 cities in the country right now. And just like you have Beale Street or Bourbon Street, the Mecca and the main artery in Nashville is a street called Broadway. They call it Lower Broad, is the nickname for it. And within Lower Broad, you're going to see, countless honky tonks, dive bars, and now even some really, really big ones that have been built by some of the biggest entertainers, potentially in the world, certainly within the country music space. And if you're a fan of music and entertainment, it's the spot to be. So we were fortunate and blessed enough to have a great partner come alongside us and say, let's put one of these on Broadway, and it literally is on that main strip. It's about an 8,000 square foot venue. It's 3 stories, and literally let me back up for a second, Coach. If you're coming down the sidewalk, which again, lots of pedestrian traffic up and down, the first thing you're going to hear and see is the music. The windows are open, the music's pouring out into the street. It's just an incredible situation. And then you'll see people stop and they'll look inside and they'll go, "Now this place looks like, I just got to go check this out." It's this rich, reclaimed wood. It almost looks like an old cabin, if you will, like walking into a big Cabela store or Bass Pro. It's like it kind of puts you in that element. There's different mounts here and there. There's giant tractor tire chandeliers that are hanging from the ceiling that are adorned with Redneck Riviera whiskey bottles as lights. The love for our troops spills throughout the entire facility with red, white, and blue theme, and the challenge coins in the bar. And it's incredible. So you walk in, you hear the music, and that's just the first floor. And then you go up to the second floor, and there's another major stage. And the backdrop behind that stage is a 24-foot Airstream trailer that we cut in half. And literally that's the backdrop. It looks like you're in a campground. It's incredible. And then you go to the third floor, and it's this big open air rooftop with these incredible views where you can play cornhole or bago or sit and listen. They're literally at all hours of the day is music from the first floor to the third, with some of the most amazing staff. Just rich, warm Southern hospitality. Again, our whole mantra of being work hard, play hard. When you come in, we want to serve you. We know you've worked hard. It's now time for you to play, and we want to serve you and make sure you get everything you could ever possibly want.
And one of the coolest parts of the whole experience there is the congruence, the brand congruence. You've partnered with Folds of Honor, and you're also providing jobs for veterans at Redneck Riviera Bar.
That's correct.
And I have to say, having been to Nashville a number of times, going up and down Broadway, so much of it looks the same. And I use that strip of road and those establishments as an example for the general marketplace. It's a crowded, commoditized marketplace in every industry. So much everything looks the same. Like, look at the automotive industry. Ford Taurus, a Honda Accord, a Lexus 4-door sedan. All these 4-door sedans look the same. They're all right around the same price for the most part, and it's hard to tell them apart and see a sameness. One of the I think the superpowers of John Rich and Big and Rich, the brand, is the ability to stand out and just the visual element, so that it's called pattern interruption or pattern interrupt. You get used to seeing the same thing, and then you see something completely unique, and it almost hijacks your brain. I mean that in a good way. And the visual of that establishment is very different. Not just the vibe when you're in there, but as you're going down the street, the visual component is much more compelling. It's congruent with the brand, in that I think there's a lesson in here for all of us. It's congruent with the brand, in that lots of people slap their name on a bar and they're kind of like silent partners in something that, they're going to get a royalty off the name of, the establishment. And there's nothing unique about that. This is a lifestyle brand that also offers an experience. And I think that's something everyone, can take away with, a life lesson, and make their, literally make their business better and stand out more tomorrow. And you go to a Big and Rich show, you see the same thing. Nobody uses the real estate on the back of the guitar as a sign or a billboard like those guys. Literally nobody like those guys. Right. John's got, rhinestones going around the perimeter of his entire guitar, and he's got his jeans are almost like bedazzled. It kind of reminds me of Elvis. And what's the point of that? It's not vanity. It's not ego. It's, you're at a concert venue. There's a lot of stuff competing for your attention. He wants to make damn sure that you got your focus on the right things. And I think it's all by design. And, the only other parallel I could draw to it would be like a Starbucks. They've orchestrated, and I mean that in a positive way, every aspect of the customer experience from the time that you pull in the parking lot, walk in the door, right down to after you've gotten your drink. Like, there's just very few parallels to that. And everyone should kind of put their business under a microscope after they listen to this episode and figure out, you know what? How can we do the same thing in our industry? How can we play chess, not checkers? How can we stand out in a sea of sameness? TJ, what's next for you guys? There's so much going on. What's on the horizon?
Well, I know it's not sleep or a nap, because we got a lot to do right now. So, as I mentioned, we're working through more categories. We've got barbecue sauce. We have a barbecue grill company. There is a TV show concept. I don't think it's a little premature to mention that. I can't get into the specifics of who it's with or what network, but that looks like it's going to move forward and be a green light soon. And it'll, encompass a lot of what the guys are doing, both John and Kenny, but also have a great storyline with Redneck Riviera. So, and continue to open up more states around the country with the whiskey, continue to do more amazing things with Folds of Honor. And, at the end of the day, just kind of sit for a minute and smile and fist pump and high five each other, because it's just been a remarkable, 3, 4, 5 years, and we have no intention of slowing down. But it is good to kind of stop and celebrate from time to time. So we plan on doing that a little bit as well.
Yeah, you got to stop and celebrate. I think the more you celebrate success, the more success you have to celebrate. So, TJ, what would be your best advice? Someone's listening to this right now, and they're like, "Wow, that was like a master class in entrepreneurship." Listening to TJ McDaniel here, where would you encourage someone to get started as they're sort of either, beginning their journey, or maybe, kind of deciding after hearing this, like, I really need to, like I said earlier, put my business under a microscope and start to kind of reinvent myself. How could they channel their inner Redneck Riviera, so to speak?
Yeah. The first thing that I personally feel is always the most important is just put your hand out and meet somebody new. Make a friend. You never know. And it doesn't matter if you're 18 or 83, you never know who it is that you're talking to and where that conversation could lead. I mean, that literally is how I ended up striking a partnership with being able to work with a guy like John Rich. I put my hand out and I said, "Hi, my name is TJ McDaniel, and I'd like to figure out a way to work with you." And that's what led to this. So that would be the first thing. Never stop meeting people and figuring out how to connect in a business or personal level with folks. The other thing is this: if it's something that you want, and not to get too, coach, preach, or that, but if it's something that you're really intentional about and you really want, then
we don't do coach preach around here.
No coach preach, but exactly. I don't want to take your thunder, but you just got to go get it. I mean, that's just it. If it's, I have a lot of people that go, "Man, that's so cool. I'd love to be an entrepreneur." And I look at them and go, "Well, why aren't you?" They're not willing to go do it. And it's real simple. You can't just wish for something, but not get up and go work for it. It just is not going to happen. And so
we got a word for that. We call them wantrepreneurs.
Exactly. No, it's not going to work. And so get up and go hustle. And then the last thing is, find that unique voice. And, as you talked about Broadway and how crowded, and really even outside of Broadway, the marketplace, it's so busy. So many things are vying for your attention and your dollars. try to find that unique voice that would work and resonate, but is also sustainable and potentially duplicatable, which we will do with Redneck Riviera as we expand in these other venues. So, man, my mom used to tell me when I was a kid, son, you're born an original, don't buy a copy. And I thought that was so dumb when I was 9 years old. But now in my 40s, I look back and go, how profound. Like, go find your unique identity and then just go do it. So that's my advice, Coach.
That's the best advice anyone will ever get right there, what you got at an early age, TJ.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think people underestimate the power of the first thing you said, put your hand out and make a friend. And this is where it's no surprise to me that you and John just clicked when you met. Because as you're saying that, put your hand out and make a friend. Well, what do Big and Rich do in the middle of their shows? If you haven't been to a concert, folks, you have to get to a Big and Rich show, because they, beyond being a great show and a lesson in, the customer experience, you'll notice that in the middle of their show, they stop. They stop playing music mid-show, not for an intermission, but they stop and they go on the microphone. They ask people to introduce themselves to the person next to them and just shake their hand, make a friend. So no small coincidence that was your first lesson for everyone listening here. I think people underestimate that. We're in such a wired world. There's a big difference between a Facebook friend and a real friend. There's a big difference between a Twitter follower and a real customer. So, one of the most fascinating studies I've seen is there's a group of researchers at Michigan State University, and they did a study of college students there and how many Facebook friends they had. So, on the average, each kid had about 300-400 Facebook friends, but they only counted 75 of them as, quote, air quotes, real friends that they actually really knew and connected with, or even like shared their post and liked their post. So we're in this wired world, and I think it's often our enemy because we don't put our hand out and make a friend in person. So
that's right.
One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to invite my clients to a whiskey tasting, and
awesome.
I'm going to ask them bring a friend, and we're going to share a bottle of Redneck Riviera whiskey, and we're going to, per your advice, put our hand out and make a friend that night, which I think will be great. And
that's awesome.
I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast, TJ. Tell us where to go. A, if people want a pair of awesome boots, and B, if they want to get some other apparel, or maybe find their way down to Redneck Riviera Bar in Nashville.
Absolutely. Everything can be found at redneckriviera.com. If you go to that website, you'll get a great look at what our brand stands for, the identity, some awesome videos. And then, of course, the nav at the top will lead you to different areas where you can shop, explore products, find locations of the bar, whiskey locations near you, or beef jerky locations near you. Everything you would need is at redneckriviera.com. And then be sure to follow John Rich on Twitter. You can find Redneck Riviera on Twitter, Facebook as well, or on all the social channels. But give us a like, give us a follow, and let's keep the conversation going. We'd love to spend some more time with you.
Awesome. Yeah, I would add that someone's listening and they say, you know what? I'm not a whiskey fan. I'm not a whiskey drinker. Guess what? Neither am I. And strangely enough, I love Redneck Riviera whiskey. It's just smooth. It's like nothing else I've ever had. TJ, thank you for coming on, my friend. Appreciate you. And we'll have to do this again real soon.
It was a pleasure, Coach. I'd love to. And let's keep in touch. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Coach Brew Show. If you're not currently subscribed to the podcast, sign up now on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. And for more information to turn your potential into performance, head on over to coachbrew.com now.